My name is Noshir Contractor, and I'm a faculty member here at Northwestern, where I direct the Science of Networks and Communities SONIC research group. I am very excited about the team that has assembled to engage in this particular project. Here at Northwestern, we have undergraduate students who have worked on this project. We also have very capable postdoctoral students who come from a wide variety of backgrounds who are helping both with the development of the agent-based models as well as in understanding and looking at the survey data that we're collecting and analyzing those. Finally, I'm very excited about the fact that we have some very smart, intelligent, and visionary collaborators on this project.
My name is Dr. Wolfgang Munnar, and I work at Washington University in St. Louis. I am the principal investigator in this program that is looking at the issue of collective and social behavior change in Ethiopia. I'm working with colleagues from Northwestern University, George Washington University, and Jimma University, which is in Ethiopia. So each one of the different investigators and the different universities involved have an academic and scientific interest in this, but what brings us together, I think, is the fact that we're looking for an application in the real world. Changing behaviors is a very hard thing for each one of us. Changing behaviors at the collective community level is even harder, and this program is using several types of methods to understand how collective behavior happens, at least in the family planning area in Ethiopia.
My name is Rajiv Rimal. I am professor and chair of the Department of Prevention and Community Health at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. One of the first things that we did for the project was we brought together all the stakeholders for this project, including the government of Ethiopia, particularly the Ministry of Health, so officials from there, as well as the officials from regional offices of the Ministry of Health, together to introduce them to the project, let them know what we are doing, the importance of the work that we are undertaking, and most importantly, how the fruits of this labor can go a long way in promoting the use of modern contraceptives in Ethiopia.
This project is significant for a number of reasons. One reason is that so far in the family planning world, much of the resources that have been spent on what we call the supply side. And that is in setting up clinics, to making sure that there are medications when people want them, to making sure that there are healthcare providers in the clinics, they're being staffed properly, and so forth. All the things that are needed to ensure that the good supply of healthcare is there for people to use. So there's been a lot of resources that have been spent on ensuring that that supply side is kind of up and running. What has not been done to the same extent is on what we call the demand side. The demand side focuses on people's beliefs, people's perceptions, their attitudes, their likes and their dislikes, and their behaviors in terms of accessing these services.
The challenge in many countries, such as in Ethiopia, where we are conducting the study, is that they have a very large population boom that is predicted in the next decade, and they don't have the capacity to be able to deal with this population boom.
The first stage, which is about to be completed, is one in which we deploy with our colleagues in Jimma University in Ethiopia a qualitative research piece that looks in depth at interviewing, doing focus groups, life history interviews, to get a better understanding of the beliefs, the attitudes, and the structures in these communities.
I'm Mark Edberg. I'm a cultural anthropologist, and I am an associate professor in the Milken Institute School of Public Health at George Washington University. I am also in the anthropology department and in the Elliott School of International Affairs. In many ways, what my role, and George Washington University's role is, or has been and continues, is to try and understand something about the social context around family planning decisions in Oromia and in the different areas of Oromia, so that we can, before actually doing a formal social network interview, we at least have some grounding in what kinds of social networks are there, some of the contexts around that. In other words, what does a village look like? What are some of the other background factors which might influence people's decisions about family planning and family size, as well as the use of modern contraceptives. So it's sort of the formative work to understand the context around what those social networks are and what they might mean in Oromia, the Oromia region.
Oftentimes, women are making decisions about their family size based on what I would think of are very competing demands that are being placed on them. And this project is really trying to understand what are some of those demands, what are some of the barriers that prevent women from accessing modern contraceptives, for example, and what are some of the social connections that women have with each other. If we understand some of those social connections, can we get a better sense of how these kinds of decisions are being made?
Nosh and his team, also with Jimma University, they're going to look at what we call internally the social fabric of these communities. Who knows who? How are people connected? Who are influential? How does information flow across these vast interlocking relations among people, men and women?
There is a whole continuum that's being that's included in this package of linked methodologies for getting at what the social networks are, how they operate, and how salient they are in terms of decisions about family planning and modern contraceptive use. So it's a package that you might call it a grounded package, because it's not just going there with a survey that was developed elsewhere. It's including the whole process of grounding the survey in the reality that's there, in the lived reality, and then continuing with the formalized survey.
In other work that has been done, including in Ethiopia, there has been extensive efforts to conduct very large-scale surveys where people in communities are asked lots of questions about what they use, why they use it, and if they don't use it, why they don't use certain modern contraceptive methods. Our approach is to see if we can gain the same ideas by using more effective, less costly approaches that are based on advances in social network analysis.
It's an innovative way of trying to get data from communities directly in ways that give you a picture of the whole community, not of one by one by one by one. Very different. And based on all of the above, we're also going to develop, and this is also going to be led by Nosh Contractor, a simulation model that takes the data that is obtained from the social network surveys and then can build a simulation model, a computer simulation model. It's called an agent-based model that would be used to inquire about potential scenarios about intervention. So if I intervene, if I share information through these individuals in the network, what effects is that going to have on changing people's ideas about the use of modern contraception?
We build these mini networks around each individual, or ego, and hence they're referred to as egocentric networks. We look at these egocentric networks to see if the structure of the network, the content of the network, the kinds of people who are in each person's egocentric network can give us insights in helping us understand why a particular person, who is the ego in the network, is or is not adopting a modern contraceptive method, and what might be the best way to change their attitudes and behaviors about modern contraceptive methods.
We've been working very closely with our colleagues in Jimma University, where students and faculty from the university are working with us to collect data, to conceptualize the research, to analyze the data, to write up the findings that emerge from the research activity. And then we all work very closely to figure out how can these findings be put to use so that interventions in Ethiopia are made more effective. One of the really exciting parts of this project, at least for me personally, is that I get to interact with really smart people from many different parts of, in this case, the globe. So not only the three US-based institutions, but also our colleagues in Jimma, who bring a host of expertise and enthusiasm to this project that is remarkable. And I have worked with a number of colleagues from a number of different countries, but I must say the colleagues that we are currently working with in Jimma are probably the most enthusiastic team that I've ever worked with. They've got a fantastic appetite for knowledge. They're hungry for knowledge. They bring a lot of expertise to the table. So it's really a mutually beneficial kind of collaboration where we learn a lot, they learn a lot, and the project benefits tremendously because of this collaboration.
I would argue that what we are doing is relevant to global health and global development because the general problem of community social behavior change is and will remain a major limitation to claim any kind of success at scale from most of the life-saving interventions that we know. I think, honestly, this is one of the frontiers, immediate frontiers for global health. So any contribution that can be made using the kinds of methods that we are deploying in this program is going to have general applicability, and I'm very excited about that. So this project is building up on a previous generation, maybe 10 years ago, a set of studies that were done in global health and in public health using some of the methods that we are deploying, except that now the science has progressed enormously.
This project is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it is within the scope of their focus on understanding why, once we have certain solutions, technological or otherwise, that we know can work to solve certain global health problems, the next step is to see to what extent can we use social networks and other approaches to scale up the use of these. There are many instances of innovations that have been developed over the last decade and even beyond that, that we know can solve many important global health problems. Many of these solutions are relatively inexpensive. So the challenge before us is not to find a solution for the problem, but to see how we can scale up the solution so that it can be used in a more widespread fashion. Social network analysis offers one avenue as a way of helping understand how these solutions can scale up from one person to another by the social influence that gets transmitted through social networks.